So So 9.2 is basically what factors need to exist or what needs to be met before a person becomes a parent. And this is what we call as considerations. Okay. What do we need to consider before someone becomes a parent? What are the different social considerations, financial considerations? There are so many different considerations that people need to take into consideration before they become a parent. Okay, so that is basically 9.2. So this is our brainstorm. Some really good points there. Now, before we look at the considerations that people need to, acknowledge before they become a parent, we need to understand what parenting means. Now, parenting, or the definition of parenting, is basically the activity of raising a child. Okay. The activity of raising a child is what parenting is about. And remember, for this definition, it's not just about the child that is biologically related to you by blood. It could be a child that you adopt. It could be a foster child. Okay. It could be a stepson or a stepdaughter. It doesn't have to necessarily be your biological child. Okay. Parenting, again, extends to different definitions. It's just a matter of raising a child. That doesn't necessarily biologically have to be related to you. Okay. Parenting includes a set of behaviors that explain how parents interact with their children on a daily basis. So it's not just about the duties that a parent does, like putting food on the table, but also how the parent talks to their children, also how the parent behaves with the child, whether the parent respects the needs of the child, okay, whether the parents beliefs are in line with the child's beliefs and values are in line with the child's values. Okay. And we learned in chapter 7 that a lot of the time as children are growing up and they start to become teenagers, there tends to be this kind of conflict that occurs between parents and children because the child's values now really go the opposite way in the values of the parent. And there's a lot of conflict that comes out of that. Okay. So that's basically the definition of parenting. It's just the activity of raising a child. Now, the responsibilities of parenting, and these are the responsibilities, or these are the things that parents owe to their children, or parents basically have to fulfill for their children. So first of all, there are many. You don't have to know all of them, just maybe know at least 3. Okay, at least 3 from those little dot points there. So the first one is children have the right to live a full life. Okay, they have the right to good quality healthcare, clean water, nutritious food, and a clean environment. So parents obviously in a state of power where they can give these to the children. The children can't just seek this out for themselves. Children have a right to a standard of living that is good enough to meet their physical and mental needs. If the child is anxious every day because their bedroom is has a wide range of hazards or something like that, or they know that they won't have a proper space to participate in e-learning from, or they don't have a proper desk to do their homework on, and that's causing them a lot of stress and anxiety, well, that's kind of showing that the parent's not really taking that into consideration and is not meeting the child's needs. Okay, you can't have a child this age just go and buy their own study desk for themselves. Okay, the parents have to fulfill that for them. Okay, children have the right to relax, play, and to join in a wide range of leisure activities. So in the same way that saying goes like, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. The same thing with children. Okay, you can't just expect them to be studying 24/7. You need to give them the time to relax and play. And in chapter 7, remember we talked about the fact that play is really important for our motor functions. Okay, that's the main way that children learn their gross motor skills and their fine motor skills. So we need to give them the right to have that time for themselves too. Also, children have the right to reliable information from the media. Now, you might be thinking, how can parents control media? Can anyone in the chat box, just think about it, anyone in the chat box can tell me, how could a parent control the extent to which their child receives information from the media? Or what could they do? What could be a strategy or something that they do or a rule that they have to make sure that the child is not harmed by some of the dangerous and harmful stuff we do see on the media? Yeah, excellent. Restrictions on the devices that the child uses. Yeah, that's a really good answer. So restrictions on devices, maybe not allowing the child to use the devices for too long, looking at the devices or monitoring the usage. Yeah. Okay, screen time, disabling content on app settings. Yeah, those are excellent answers there. So I don't know if you guys remember, like, I think it was 2 years back, or was it 1 year back, when these like people were putting like weird content in some of the YouTube kids videos, and they'd have like a Peppa Pig video, and then there'd be like a really graphic, violent kind of scene of Peppa Pig doing something, or hurting someone in the middle of that. That was actually a big issue, because what had happened is that these people had actually hijacked some of the videos on YouTube Kids, which is the YouTube Kids app, and had actually started to put very violent and disturbing content in those videos. And so parents were very confused about what they could do now to actually protect their kids. And a lot of parents, I think, uninstalled YouTube Kids after that, or they had to like look for alternative sources of entertainment. Okay, so again, those are some really good ways in which parents can protect their children from the media and from what kind of content they consume online. Obviously, parents cannot control this forever, but they can control it to an extent until the kid gets to an age where they can handle that kind of information or content. Okay, so these are some rights. So again, just know any 3 responsibilities of parents. So these are the responsibilities that they have towards their children, or basically what they owe their children. Okay, and alternatively, these are the rights that children have. So these are the rights of children, and they're the responsibilities of parents to fulfill these rights or meet these rights. So then we look at social factors in parenting. Now, social factors in parenting, and if you see this question or see this terminology in a SAC, you need to understand that social factors in parenting basically means how has parenting, or how is parenting today different from how parenting was 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years back. Okay, if you think about it, the way your grandma, okay, and the way your grandpa, and the ages in which they became parents is going to be very different to maybe the age at which you become a parent, or at which your older brother or sister became parents. Okay, so social factors in parenting means that as society changes, and as we go through different time periods or different generations, there are going to obviously be changing social factors. Okay, now your grandma or your great grandmother might not have had a might not have been encouraged to maybe take on a job, okay, after she finished school. Okay, a lot of our great grandmothers might not have even finished their complete schooling or finished university. Okay, because at that time in that society, it was completely normal and completely acceptable to get married and start a family, and that was the expectation for women in that particular time period or that particular time of history. Today, in today's society, obviously, if someone's going to be having a kid at 16 or 17 years old, it's not like abnormal, but it is in a way not common. Okay, it's not common because it's not what society expects. Okay, society expects women to finish school, to get a job, to work, and then to have children. That's the general kind of rite of passage or society's expectations. Okay, so you can talk about that as being a social factor as to how parenting has changed. Okay, women today are becoming parents a lot later in life than women maybe 30, 40 years back. Okay, they've got different income and educational levels, which is actually good for the child because it means that the child gets more resources. Okay, not just more toys, but also better educational like toys that can help them to read. Okay, better nutrition. Okay, better support in terms of all those facilities that are important for them. Okay, like play groups and childcares and that kind of stuff where they can learn things. Okay, there's a higher divorce and remarriage rate as well in today's society, more than ever before. So more and more children are experiencing life with a single parent. Okay, and that obviously influences how parenting is going to be as well. Okay, more flexible working hours also means that you could be a nurse that works night shift and you might still be able to see your child. Okay, whereas maybe in the olden days, if you were a nurse working night shift, workplaces weren't as flexible, so you might not have been able to see your you might not be able to see your child during those hours you're working a night shift. Okay, so basically that is those are the different social factors. Okay, you need to know at least 2, and you need to be able to explain how these social factors lead to differences in parenting today compared to back in the olden days or back in another time period. Okay, so just note any 2. A few questions we need to answer, and these are part of our considerations before becoming a parent. So we're talking about different needs, okay? the first question we have to ask ourselves before we become a parent or before anyone becomes a parent is, can a child's needs be met by me as a parent? Okay. So first of all, children have physical needs, and those physical needs need to be met. So we need to be able to provide them with proper housing. And some of you said home when we talked about that particular question and brainstorm at the beginning. They need to have proper food. They need to have a proper place they can sleep. You can't just put a kid on a couch. You need to put them in a bassinet or a cot, okay, or a crib or something like that, where they can be safe, where they won't fall over, okay, where it's a safe enclosure for them to sleep there. Access to healthcare. If the child is sick, they need to be able to go to visit the doctor, okay? And as a parent, it's your responsibility to obviously do this for them. Children also have social needs. Social needs refer to their, the priority with which we have to allow them to have a proper social environment where they can learn. Now, we know children or babies don't talk straight away, but they actually learn a lot from the environment around them, okay? Just by seeing a smile from their parent or their sibling, okay, just by watching their siblings interact with one another, they actually learn a lot, okay, about where one sentence stops and another one ends. They learn a lot about like behavior and emotional expression, like laughing, smiling. What does it look like when my mom gets happy? What does it look like when she's angry? Okay, these are really important things that children won't actually understand unless they are given that social environment at home. That is a stable social environment rather than an abusive or violent or unstable or insecure environment. Okay, and if you've done psychology, you've learned a little bit more about the importance of providing a safe haven or a safe social environment for children to form those proper attachments to their parents. Okay. So that's, can a child's needs be met? So we're talking about physical needs, social needs. We're also talking about emotional needs. So this is again related to attachment, okay? If you've got a parent or a mother or a caregiver who's abusive towards the child or who's neglectful or ignorant towards the child, you won't really have the child developing in a normal way, okay? Or in a way that is considered to be typical for their age range, okay? And they might grow up having lower levels of empathy, lower levels of emotional understanding towards others, which obviously is supported by research that kids who grow up with abusive parents sadly eventually kind of develop abusive tendencies themselves. Okay, so that is basically the emotional needs. Then we've got the intellectual needs, and intellectual is all about our brain and how we think about the world around us. So we're talking about things like, thinking, we're talking about learning, we're talking about how you speak, okay, what words you use. So all of these things, children can't just get this out of nowhere. They need to be given resources that allow them to, maneuver around their environment, that allow them to manipulate certain objects, okay? So all those little toys that parents get their babies, like the little things with the flashing lights and the things that they can push around, or a little book that will read a story to them, all of those things you might think are a little bit over the top, but they're actually really important for developing the child's intellectual needs, okay, and intellectual skills there. Okay, so that's basically intellectual needs there. Then we're talking about, can an proper environment be provided? And some of you talked about stable environments and stable housing and a stable home. Okay, this is all a part of that. So can an environment, safe environment and stable environment be provided there? So obviously we're talking about having a proper place for kids to play, where there's not like, it's not messy, where there's not like little objects that are all over the floor that the child might put in their mouth that could lead them to choke. Okay, we need to make sure, obviously, when you've got a child in the house, you've got an infant or a baby, that there aren't things that might cause the baby to fall over, that there aren't things that might cause the baby to choke, okay, or that might be dangerous for the baby, that might cause them to slip. So obviously things like putting gates on at the bottom of a flight of stairs. If you've got a swimming pool, putting a protective fence around that so the baby doesn't fall in and drown. And that's one of the main causes of death in children under the age of 5, drowning, because they fall into their swimming pool in the backyard or something like that. Okay, so basically providing a safe environment is really, really important with you if you've got an infant or a baby there. These are some data, and we'll probably analyze this data a little bit more on Friday when we do the rest of our data analysis. This data just shows you the number of hospitalized assault cases for children aged between 0 to 14 by the perpetrator, so by the person who's actually assaulted them. And you can see that in terms of which people tend to assault children the most, it's generally the parent, carer, or other family member, which is actually quite sad. But if you think about it, these are the people who are in constant contact with the child every day. And so the abuse is more likely to happen by the actual parent themselves. Okay, this is showing you about how parents fare or how parents perform in terms of, interacting with the child. So generally, most parents in this is a 2015 survey. It's actually from Canada, but we can apply it to Australia as well. It's similar societies there. If we talk about parental engagement and involvement with children, you can see that most parents today are a lot more involved with their children, okay? And if you think about the social factors, maybe 30, 40 years back, we're not saying parents weren't involved, but if you think about it, the family sizes were a lot bigger. People had a lot more kids in the back in the days, like decades back, compared to what they have today. Okay, having, for example, 6 or 7 children was probably normal for a lot of families in the 1940s or 1930s or 1950s even, but today it's not as normal. It's not abnormal, but it's not as normal for someone to have like a family of 10. Okay, it's not typical, or it's not as common. So essentially parents are being more involved, and that is all due to that lack of increased awareness and kind of like probably the fact that they don't have as many children and they have that choice, and they're not really pressured by society to have more. Okay, so they can put all their attention into the children that they have. So that's just some reasons for explaining that data there. Other changes that parenting will bring, acceptable. So it's not just about having a baby, but are you ready to accept? Okay, a lot of people are like, yeah, I'm ready to be a parent, blah, blah, blah. But are you really ready to be a parent? That's the question here. Okay, a lot of parents, especially when they're young, before they become parents, they don't understand how much personal freedom they will have to sacrifice when they actually become a parent. Okay, parenting is a difficult transition, and it's, I don't know about it myself, obviously, but I have heard that it does lead to a lot of sleepless nights. It does lead to a lot of sacrifices. Okay, you can't just live the life that you are living as a couple or as a single person when you have a kid in the picture. Okay, financial priorities also change, and a lot of people underestimate how much money a baby actually costs. It's not just about nappies and things, but it's about, regular checkups, medications. It's about making sure that you've got everything set up in your home to make it baby proof or baby safe. Okay, and that actually costs a lot more money. A car seat, for example, a baby car seat can cost probably minimum $500. Okay, and a lot of parents can't afford that. Okay, especially if only one person is working, it's very hard to do that. It is essential that parents do have a strong relationship with the child, and realize that it's not just about having a child and just letting it play in its own room the whole day. It's about obviously actively engaging with the child and accepting that these are changes that you will have to head towards, and that you will have to take on, okay, and accept as a part of your normal life. Social support for new parents. So obviously parenting is not something that you can just do a course for. It's something you learn as you go, or you learn on the job. Most parents, when they become parents for the first time, even if you've been looking after maybe your brother or sister's child or your nephew or niece, it's not the same as if you had your own child. Okay, so obviously social support is important, and you should know 2 examples of social support. Okay, social support can come in many forms, like money, babysitters, looking after children, helping with meal prep, okay, caring for the other children or other siblings that might be in the home, assisting with household errands or tasks or chores. Okay, if you need if you need transport or something, they can help you, they can give you a ride. All of these things might not seem really like phenomenal, but they are really, really helpful for new parents who are still trying to figure out how things work, okay, and figure out the ropes there. So parents who have higher levels of social support, it's better for them because they're better able to cope with the stresses. So What's coping with the stresses about, guys? What dimension of health does it relate to? Put it in the chat box. When we're coping, if a parent's able to better cope with the stresses of life, yeah, it's mental. Correct. Excellent. So this would be mental health. So having social support actually helps a parent to feel better mental health and well-being, because they're better able to cope with those stresses and those anxieties that they might experience as a result of becoming a new parent. They also develop more resilience. Now, resilience is the ability to bounce back, and resilience, we say, is connected to emotional health and well-being. Okay. It's funny because in psychology, we say resilience is more to do with mental health, but in health, for some reason, we link it more to emotional. Okay. So it's about emotional. Social support also helps the child, because just having more people in the house, for example, aunts, uncles, families, friends, and cousins, gives them that greater sense of warmth, of affection. Just seeing everyone interacting with each other, it's actually teaching the baby a lot more than you realize. And it's kind of sad because I was reading an article the other day saying that children who were kind of like COVID babies, or babies that are born during the times of COVID, like last year and this year, they're experiencing extended periods of isolation where they're only really seeing maybe just their parents. They're not even seeing their extended family and things like that. And that eventually that is causing them to maybe develop in a different way, or not have the best social development as babies of previous years where COVID was in existence might have had. So it's kind of sad, but yeah, it's a part and parcel of that baby's emotional and social development there. So emotional support, obviously, it's not just about emotionally developing the baby, but giving the parents that emotional support as well. Again, some emotions. Can anyone just name one or two emotions that you think that a new parent would feel? Just put it in the chat box. And remember, emotions are feelings, okay? Feelings that we can link to an emotion there. Yep. We have to be a little bit careful, because anxious actually is more of a mental state. It's not a feeling, but frustrated is a feeling there. Yep. So frustrated, angry, okay, maybe disappointed even at themselves, or upset at themselves. Even feelings of, um, even feelings of being maybe kind of like gloomy as well on certain days. Okay, scared. Yeah, those are really good answers there. So again, parents feel a range of emotions. There might be days when parents are extremely happy and over the moon, like, oh my God, becoming a parent was the best thing I ever did. And there might be other days where they're just furious at why they ever became a parent. Okay, so remember that emotional fluctuation is not normal. It's not something we see in everyday life. Okay, but parents, new parents, who've never done this kind of thing before, it is normal for them. And it's important to give parents those support and to tell them that, okay, this is totally normal for you to feel this way, and just to make them feel like they're doing okay. The worst thing, and I feel like we have a lot of this in all of our cultures, is that when people become new parents, everyone, even their own family, might try to judge them for it, or might say, okay, why are you doing this? Don't you know it's better to do this for the baby? Or don't you know that letting the baby sleep on its side is not good for it, let it sleep on its back? And it's like everyone else tries to be the parent and not let the actual parents do the parenting. So that can actually lead to a lot of feelings of disappointment as well. Okay. And yeah, emotional support is very, very important for these parents. Okay, particularly when they are the new parents and they've never had a child before. Resources that parents need. So knowledge. Okay, this is to do with health literacy. Health literacy, like we said in Unit 1, it's just about our basic health knowledge. Okay, obviously things that are kind of like common sense, but still important for us to know. For example, if you know that your water supply is contaminated, you're not going to make baby formula for your baby with that contaminated water. Okay, that is health literacy, because in developing countries, as you're going to learn about next year in Unit 4, one of the main reasons babies die in those countries is because they don't have clean water. Okay, and the level of knowledge or health literacy that people have in those countries is they don't realize that something as simple as mixing the water that they have with the formula powder that they have will lead to their baby dying in a matter of hours, or just a matter of 1 or 2 days. Okay, so that's health literacy for you. Okay, formal education, the more educated you are, generally the more awareness you get of the world around you and of what it is to be a parent and of safety precautions and things like that. Okay, obviously the more education you have, the more health literacy you have, and the more health literacy you have, the more bad habits you will avoid. Okay, if you're pregnant and you've obviously you want to have a healthy baby, obviously, you're not going to take illicit drugs. Okay, you're not going to smoke, you're not going to take illicit drugs. You are going to be aiming to give the best start for your baby, and you realize the effect that your actions have on that baby, okay, directly. So that's to do with knowledge. Also, when you have better knowledge or better qualifications educational wise, you have better chances of getting a job. So let's say if you're a mum and your husband just abandons you after the baby's born, at least you know that you can get a job yourself, okay, and you can earn some money for your baby and look after one another there. Okay, so those are some reasons. Now you need to know at least 2 points from this slide here. So 2 ways in which knowledge helps a parent to be the best parent that they can be. Okay. Okay, material resources. So this is really straightforward, but material resources are actual things that we require. Okay, so actual things that we require or that parents require in order to be an optimal parent there. So actual things or items or materials. So we're talking about things like money. Obviously, we need money. If you're going to be a parent, you need money to support the child. Things like toys, things like nursing chairs, things like rockers, okay, that the child can manipulate, or that the child can kind of be entertained by and learn things from as well. Okay, childcare can also become a significant cost later on, and that's why, again, money is an important material resource to have. Okay, it's really important to have these material resources on hand. A lot of parents, when they're starting out, might think that they can do everything themselves, but only after they've actually given birth to the child and have lived a few months with the child do they realize that, okay, having a rocker that I can just put the child on and do a few things myself is actually more important than I initially thought. And it's actually worth every single cent that I paid for it, because it gives me that time to do something, like quickly prepare some formula for the baby, and it allows the baby to also have a nice time just rocking on the rocker. Okay, so that's basically material resources there. And we've got some federal government resources. Now, you don't need to know all of these, so I'm just going to tell you guys to learn one for the SAC. We won't ask you about a specific one. We'll just ask you to name any one. Federal government means Australian. Okay, so these programs are based by the Australian government, or are created by the Australian government, and they're national programs, or they're federal programs, which means that they more or less apply to every single state in Australia. Okay, so whether you're living in Queensland or New South Wales or Victoria, you will see all of these in one form or the other. Okay, so Medicare, we all know what that is. Medicare is Australia's public healthcare scheme. It's that Medicare, that green card, okay, that allows you to have access to a wide range of treatments. Okay, if you're giving birth in a public hospital, that is covered by Medicare as well. Okay, as well as any antenatal care. Antenatal care means care after the baby has been born. So like monitoring the baby's health, giving it the immunizations and all that stuff. Dad and partner pay. So gives new dads or fathers or partners up to 2 weeks to bond with their child. So that's leave basically for the dad. And there is a specific amount for that. Okay. There's also paid parental leave, maternity leave for mums, and family tax benefit there. The pregnancy, birth, and baby helpline is just a phone number that you can call. It's a bit like Nurse on Call, if you've heard of that. You just call the number and you can ask any questions related to pregnancy, birth, and baby issues. And again, this is a really good source of social support, particularly if you don't want to ask like someone close to you, or you feel like you've got a question but you don't want to be judged for it or something like that. You can literally just call these guys, and they're literal strangers, and you just talk to them and they can give you that advice. And I think most of these people on the helpline are actual registered nurses or healthcare workers themselves. And the easiest thing to do is always an online website. So you do have an online website that's Australian based. It's called raisingchildren.net.au. So new parents can actually visit this website if they are, for example, awake at 4 a.m. and worried about some aspect of what they're doing as a parent. They can always visit that website and get some more information there. So those are some 4 different types of resources at the federal government level. So you just need to know at least one for the SAC. And you need to be able to explain how it's helpful for a new parent to access such a resource. Okay, so that is the federal government resources. State government resources is similar. State government resources is similar. Just learn any one. State government resources are basically about at the Victorian level, okay, or at the New South Wales level. They are specific for the state. So for us, we're really focused with the Victorian programs, okay? So these are programs that are run by the state government, so the Victorian government or the Queensland government or whatever government you're living in or a part of. Okay, the maternal and child health service is free for all Victorian families. They basically provide you with appointments to check and monitor that child's health and well-being and growth at the different stages. Okay, the green book, it used to be a yellow book, okay, but it's now green, is basically the My Health Learning and Development Record. So this is basically given to parents in hospital as soon as their baby is born. So that's where you write the baby's name, what weight they were when they were born, what time they were born, and all that stuff. And you keep that book with you basically until the child turns, I think, at least 5 or 6 years old, or you can even keep it beyond that, I think. And it's basically to record the child's milestones, the health and well-being, the growth. Later on in life, if you think your child has a physical abnormality or physical issue in development or mental health issue, you can go back and look at that booklet and see, okay, when was the child's first word? Was that normal for their age group to speak at that age? Okay, or to start walking at this age? Was it normal or was it abnormal? So that's basically all to do with the child's milestones or what achievements they make. Okay, immunizations. I think most people, in fact, I remember like when my sister was born, I was like already 5 or 6 by then, but I still remember my mum always having that like yellow book. Like I said, it used to be yellow, and like every time we'd go to like get her immunized for something, like the nurse would kind of write the date of the immunization, what immunization it was, and any reactions or any like things that would happen after the immunization, if there were any. So all of those things, most parents would use this book to record immunizations. Okay, so that's basically the My Health Learning and Development Record. The last one is again a phone line. So you have the telephone service available 24/7, where you can basically speak to someone about any questions you have. And again, similar to the previous maternal health line that's run by the federal government, the state government one is also run by qualified maternal and child health nurses. And the state one is probably better than the federal one because it's more specific to your state. So you might ask them, okay, where's my nearest maternal health nurse? And they'll tell you, okay, you're in Truganina, the nearest one is in Werribee, or the nearest one is in Hoppers Crossing. So they can tailor their assistance or support more to you based on where you live in Victoria. Okay, but more or less this phone line service and the other phone line service serve the same purpose. It's just that one is a national service and the other one is a more state-based specific service there. So again, just learn any one of these state government resources. And the last one we're looking at is local government resources. So local government is basically your local council, and that depends, all of us, depending on where we live, will have a different local council, okay? So I think if you live close to the school, it's going to be the Wyndham City Council. If you live, towards Deer Park area, that would be Brimbank, okay? If you live in, Yarra Valley or Moonee Valley, or you live in Hume, or you live in Hobsons Bay, wherever you live, that will be your local government council then. Okay, local governments are really important. They don't provide specific programs, but they do so much in terms of the fact that if I'm living in Truganina, obviously I'm going to be able to go to a local health nurse that's close by to my house. I'm not going to drive all the way to Dandenong for that, okay? So a local government or council resource is really important for you because it allows you to access those facilities that are close by to your house to allow you to immunize or vaccinate your child. Okay, it allows you to access facilities that promote physical activity. So as soon as your child starts walking, they want to go outside, they want to go to the playground, you're able to access those facilities. Things like playgrounds are actually maintained by the council. If a playground is vandalized, it's up to the local council to fix that, okay, for their citizens or for their members of that local suburb. Okay, it's also important to remember that a lot of your childcares and daycare centres are run by local councils or regulated by local councils. Okay, a lot of your local maternal and child health services are also run by local councils, and you have many within a specific suburb. If you live in a metropolitan area, there'll be probably several different maternal and child health services around you at any time. Okay, as well as playgroups, childcare, infants, for infants, toddlers, and preschoolers. All of these things are always within your local council area. So these are really important. Again, from this slide, again, just know any two. So any two resources or facilities that local governments can provide to support new parents in their role. Okay. So just any two programs for federal, any two for state, and any two for the local government. I think that just about finishes our content for today. So I'm just going to stop the recording here, and then I'm just going to ask you guys one thing. So let me just stop the recording first.